Hello, and welcome to this presentation on the African Research Network for Neglected Tropical Diseases. My name is John AMUASI. I'm the Executive Director of the network. Let's just go over what the ARNTD is about and a bit about our history so we can contextualize this GRI. So the European Foundations Initiative for NTDs was formed in 2008 by 5 European foundations whose logos you can see on the screen. And they have the objective of building a cadre of African NTD researchers and providing an extra boost to African or Africa-based research institutions that focus on neglected tropical diseases. As you know now, neglected tropical diseases have received specific mention in SDG 3, and so are really an important part of global health and the global research agenda. So in 2013, the fellows who were part of the eFind program realized that they needed to continue post their eFind activity, and they decided to come together with the support of the foundations to form the African Research Network for NTDs. The good thing is that they had already gathered some experience and started some networking, and they wanted to continue this, extend it to others. And so they held a bunch of meetings and then decided that they wanted to establish this network. The European Foundations Initiative for NTDs, it really doesn't exist anymore because it was a specific program that is over now, did back this with some funding, and eventually the ARNTD was formed. And a lot of the people you can see in the picture right now are very senior people in their respective countries now. Over the years, a lot has changed. So what type of GRI is the ARNTD? I would call the ARNTD a centralized research infrastructure of the GSI, in that there's a 7-member management board. You can see from the schematic on the screen. This management board is actually made up of members who are scattered all over the continent, but the secretariat itself, which I lead from Kumasi in Ghana, is a lean secretariat. I run the secretariat not in a full-time position because I am an academic myself. And the advisory board is also present. It's made up of renowned international experts in the field of NTDs who a bit more removed from the network, and they advise the management board and the secretariat also directly. So our legal status is a really interesting one because we are hosted by the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research in Tropical Medicine, which is on the campus of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, Ghana. Now the KCCR, as it is in itself, derives its legal status from the university. So inadvertently, the network derives its legal status from the university, although KCCR in itself is semi-autonomous, and the network also is semi-autonomous from KCCR. So it's kind of an interesting chain, but the ultimate legal representation would be by the university. And so organizational structure is essentially the General Assembly, which is the highest decision-making body. And this General Assembly, it can be broken down into key research group areas, which the various members would fall under, as you can see from my screen. So the membership, you could break it down into various categories, right from postdocs and trainees through to members, mentors, collaborators. I already made mention of the secretariat, which is run by myself, the executive director, and a team of scientists and admin who sit here, hosted by the KCCR in Kumasi, Ghana. I made mention also of the advisory board. So what is the strategy for the ARNTD as a GRI? Well, we'll call it a GRI because it is Pan-African in nature. And not only does it involve African institutions, but people who are working in the field of NTD research, which is Africa-focused. So we do have some members who do not sit in Africa, they sit in Europe and in North America, but they are part of the ARNTD because their work focuses on Africa. The vision of the network is a continent free of NTDs, and this is very much aligned with the SDGs, enabling its populations to thrive in a healthy environment. Now, to drill down deeper into our mission and objectives, I will move on. And then there's four main objectives or strategic objectives, recognizing the need to really build this network, not only of researchers, but also policymakers and implementers. Because what you really want is for this network to be able to move the findings of the research into policy, into products, be they drugs, vaccines, diagnostics, methods of intervening, mass drug administration for neglected tropical diseases and best practices of doing this, monitoring and evaluation of programs. So we look to attract both the hardcore researchers, if I'll put it that way, and this is spanning from the basic sciences through to the social sciences and even social anthropologic research, especially considering the fact that neglected tropical diseases really are a constellation of diseases of poverty. And when poverty is really at the center of these diseases, it should tell you the complex nature of these diseases and the inherent multidisciplinary approach that is required to really achieve our objectives. One of the motivations has also been the dearth of African scientists involved in addressing NTDs. While about 80% of the global burden of NTDs is borne by Africa, the action and the decisions around NTDs are really taken largely outside of Africa. And so there really was a strong motivation to have professionals, researchers, and policymakers who understand the terrain to contribute to the global discourse on NTDs. I'll move on and speak to some of the benefits of this GRI. The benefits I'll focus on today are the benefits to the members. One is it serves as a convening ground where we're able to hold discussions with researchers, with potential funders, and with other key stakeholders who are involved in addressing NTDs. I did mention that NTDs are specifically invoked in the SDGs because of their strong link to poverty, and poverty eradication is really at the center of NTDs, of the SDGs, sorry. And so really critical that there is this space where African voices of researchers who are proximal to the problem are able to articulate their depth of understanding and also their findings from their work, and also to influence their research agenda and the priorities that need to be set. What we recognize is also the absence of the soft skills within the space of grant writing, management of research grants and management of research, interacting with other researchers across the continent and globally, and really putting across their ideas and their findings and being able to translate those into policy. Ultimately, what makes the difference is if these research findings are translated into policies, which would ultimately inure to the benefit of the poor, the poor who suffer from NTDs and who are often voiceless. So these are some of the benefits that could accrue from participation in the ARNTD. Now, over the years, the ARNTD has become increasingly visible at various levels. With it, we've interacted and participated actively in WHO meetings and spoken there and been an authentic African research voice with the USAID, with the UK FCDO, with the Druid Consortium, which is based in Germany, with the G20, and we've had the opportunity to feature in two G20 publications with specific focus on ARNTDs, on NTDs, and why having a GRI like the ARNTD is critical in addressing NTDs in light of the SDGs. More recently, we have interacted also as a collaborator with the Wildlife Conservation Society, again, because a lot of the neglected tropical diseases are zoonotic in nature and have very important interfaces with wildlife. Some of the challenges we face as a GRI, several of them, including, of course, the usual funding issue. Now, the funding issue is really interesting. Aside the challenge of getting or securing core funding so the Secretariat can perform its duties or carry out its objectives, it's also the fact that you can get funding in, but the funding is often tied to what a funder would want. So, for example, we have a great small grants program running, which is funded by the USAID and the UK FCDO through the Task Force for Global Health, core NTD, but this is targeted at the 5 preventive chemotherapy NTDs, whereas the AR-NTD in itself would be focused largely on all the 20/21 NTDs. So in this case, we are limited in our activity because of what this funding would allow us to do. So there's also this historical poor career pathway for scientists in Africa, for which funding is required, not always easy. I'll move on to the more political challenges. Again, trying to balance the national priorities with continent-wide priorities and goals and timelines. This has always been a challenge. Is it a priority for one country to eradicate one NTD versus another? Of course, now we have the global roadmap for NTDs, which was launched in January, and AR-NTD played a critical role during that process, which was led by the WHO. But these are some of the ways in which we lend our voice to having a more streamlined agenda for NTDs. Institutional challenges also involve being able to secure the appropriate administrative support. As I mentioned, the Secretariat is run entirely by non-100% individuals. And so sometimes having the dedicated skilled administrative support is a challenge. There is the option of the network moving or changing its modus operandi and becoming maybe less of a centralized GRI. But for now, this would really be dictated by the availability of funds. Another major challenge is the fact that there is this constant conflict of interest, if I'll call it that, between the Secretariat and the host institution, because those running the Secretariat are also scientists in themselves who source for grants and for opportunities. So the decision as to whether this should be something that is run by the institution versus something run by the network. And this challenge also transcends through to the members themselves in applying for grant opportunities in NTDs. Would they want to go under the umbrella of the network versus under the umbrella of their own institutions in their respective countries? And this is still a continuing challenge. But given that this network is focused on being a loose network, sort of a convening GRI, perhaps it's one of the things we would have to continue to live with or to grapple with. Again, of course, the issue of the language barrier or language diversity. English, French, and Portuguese are spoken by our members across the continent. And sometimes this is a challenge, achieving that fine balance of opportunity and also communication. So those are some of the challenges that we face. Nonetheless, we've got a bunch of success stories, and a lot of our activities have contributed significantly to highlighting the importance of NTDs in Africa and globally, and providing the necessary attention. More recently, we were involved in World NTD Day in January last year with a strong focus on snake bite, which is the newest addition to one of the newest additions to NTDs, so the list of NTDs. And we played a critical role in highlighting how snake bite is a major problem. Again, we've been able to significantly increase our members with the distribution across English-speaking, French-speaking, and Portuguese-speaking African countries. And most importantly, perhaps really proud of our small grants program, which allows us to fund up-and-coming researchers who would eventually take the reins of leadership in Africa on NTD research, and would be able to directly influence the global research agenda and policy around NTD control and elimination. And with this, I invite you to interface further with us on our website, www.arntd.org. You can write to us also, but all the details will be available on our website. And thank you very much.